It was a bright Tuesday morning in the Meadow VYEW Gardens, the kind of day where the sun seemed to coax every flower into blooming just a little brighter. The community garden buzzed with the usual hum of life birds chirping, bees darting, and gardeners tending their plots with quiet devotion. But beneath the cheerful surface, something was off. Ethan Harper, a guy known for his killer heirloom zucchini and a knack for noticing things others missed, caught a faint, trembling cry that cut through the morning's melody. His ears, sharpened from years of working as a city green space inspector, zeroed in on it. Dropping his trowel, he scanned the rows of VY Brant plots until his eyes landed on her Mrs. Clara Thompson, an 87-year-old widow who was as much a part of Meadow VYEW as the towering oak at its entrance. She was crumpled on the gravel path near the shared lavender beds, her face twisted in pain, her hands clutching at the air where her beloved hand-carved cane should have been. A few yards away, Ms. Lorraine Baxter, the iron-fisted head of the HOA's garden committee, was pruning her award-winning lavender with surgical precision. Her back was turned, her posture radiating a cold, deliberate indifference. Ethan's gut twisted as he bolted toward Mrs. Thompson, his boots crunching loudly on the gravel. "Mrs. Thompson, are you okay? Did you hurt yourself?" he asked, kneeling beside her, his eyes scanning for injuries. Her usually sparkling green eyes were clouded with confusion and fear. "Oh, Ethan, dear," she gasped, her voice shaky. "My cane? I had it right here, propped against the bench while I was smelling Lorraine's lavender. I went to stand, and it was gone. I must have lost my balance. My hip." Her words faded into a soft whimper, her hand pressing against her side. "Gone." Lorraine's voice sliced through the air like a blade as she finally turned, her face a mask of faint irritation. "Clara, you must be mistaken. Canes don't just vanish. Are you sure you brought it today? Or did you leave it by the hose again?" The word again dripped with venom, a jab at Mrs. Thompson's age and memory. "I brought it," Mrs. Thompson insisted, her voice trembling but firm. "I can't walk without it. It was right there." She pointed weakly at the wrought iron bench. Lorraine made a show of glancing under it, her lips curling slightly. "Well, it's not here now, is it? Maybe a squirrel took it," she said with a smirk. "Though I've made it clear no pests in my garden. More likely, you misplaced it. It happens when you get older." Ethan's jaw tightened. Lorraine's casual cruelty, cloaked in fake concern, was chilling. He helped Mrs. Thompson sit up, his mind racing. A sturdy, 3-foot cane, carved with intricate VY nests and adorned with bead from her grandkids, doesn't just disappear in a busy garden in broad daylight. His eyes flicked to the lavender bed where Lorraine had been working. The soil looked freshly turned, too neat, too perfect. It could be nothing just gardening. But Lorraine's smug composure, her rush to blame Mrs. Thompson's age, felt wrong. Ethan wasn't just the guy from Plot 12, who shared zucchini tips. By day, he was a senior compliance officer for the city's urban green space DVY Shown, trained to spot the smallest signs of trouble in landscape's illegal dumping, vandalism, or in this case, something far more sinister. Lorraine had no idea who she was dealing with. Ethan and his wife, Lily, had moved to Meadow VYEW 3 years ago, drawn by its lush greenery and tight-knit community garden. Mrs. Thompson had welcomed them warmly, sharing gardening tricks and stories of her late husband, who'd helped start the garden. Her cane, a gift from him, wasn't just a tool, it was her lifeline, easing the pain of her arthritis and letting her tend her cherished plot of snapdragons and heirloom carrots. Lorraine, on the other hand, was the garden's self-appointed queen. Her rules down to the exact shade of mulch allowed were law, and her sharp tongue silenced anyone who dared stray from her VY Shown of perfection. She'd scold gardeners for untidy plots or invent new bylaws on the spot, her presence looming like a storm cloud. Until now, her tyranny had been petty, but the missing cane and her chilling dismissal of Mrs. Thompson's pain hinted at something darker. After settling Mrs. Thompson on the bench, Ethan rallied a few gardeners to search for the cane. They checked compost bins, peeked under shrubs, and scoured the paths. Nothing. Lorraine, after a half-hearted glance around, claimed urgent committee business and swept off, Leah VYing Ethan to help a shaken Mrs. Thompson hobble home. But that freshly turned soil in the lavender bed stuck in his mind like a thorn. He couldn't shake the image of Lorraine's calculated calm. Back at Mrs. Thompson's cottage, he called her son, who promised to drive over and arrange for a doctor to check her bruised hip. Then he returned to the garden, his inspector's instincts kicking in. He needed to check that lavender bed, but before he could start, he spotted Lorraine pinning a notice to the garden's bulletin board. Titled Garden Safety and User Responsibility, it was a thinly veiled attack. In convoluted prose, it reminded gardeners to maintain awareness of their belongings and warned that mobility aids causing obstructions could lead to plot reassignment for those deemed negligent or physically incapable. It was a direct threat to Mrs. Thompson, painting her as a liability. Ethan's blood boiled. This wasn't just bullying, it was gaslighting, a power play to strip Mrs. Thompson of her garden, her sanctuary. That evening, a neighbor whispered that Lorraine was already lobbying HOA members, calling Mrs. Thompson forgetful and a risk, suggesting her plot be reevaluated for her own safety. The cruelty was staggering, but it didn't stop there. A few days later, Mrs. Thompson, too shaken to sit the garden, asked Ethan to check on her carrots and snapdragons. What he found made his heart sink. Her ripest carrots were yanked out and smashed on the path. Her basil was uprooted, tossed in the compost. Worst of all, her snapdragons grown from seeds her husband had saved were beheaded, their petals scattered like broken dreams. No footprints, no OBVYS clues. But then Ethan spotted something glinting in the soil. A small, silver hoop earring, just like the ones Lorraine always wore. It could have been anyone's, but in that moment, it felt like a signature. As he snapped photos of the damage, Lorraine appeared, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Oh, Ethan, what a shame. Clara's plot looks like raccoons got to it. Gardens do suffer without constant saw care, don't they?" Her eyes gleamed with something cold, predatory. I'll have to note this for the committee's re-VYEW of underperforming plots. Ethan pocketed the earring in a small bag, his resolve hardening. This wasn't just about a cane anymore. Lorraine's actions were crossing into harassment, maybe even criminal territory. He decided to lean into his day job, turning from neighbor to investigator. Under the guise of helping with soil health, Ethan got access to the lavender bed. While Lorraine preened over his volunteer work, he worked methodically, his trowel probing the soil. Then, just beneath the mulch, he found a tiny wooden bead shaped like a bumblebee, one of the charms on Mrs. Thompson's cane. It was undeniable proof. Lorraine had buried the cane here, and in her haste to cover her tracks, she'd left this behind. But Ethan's digging went deeper. Using city databases, he uncovered Lorraine's past in other HOAs. In 2 communities, she'd orchestrated similar schemes pushing out elderly gardeners with petty complaints and safety concerns, only for their plots to be upgraded with pricey materials from a landscaping company owned by her cousin. It wasn't just cruelty, it was a hustle profiting off the vulnerable. Armed with the bumblebee bead, the earring, photos of the vandalism, and EVY Denke of Lorraine's predatory history, Ethan prepared for battle. Lorraine had called an HOA meeting to push her garden beautification plan, a clear move to seize Mrs. Thompson's plot. The Meadow VYEW clubhouse was packed, the air thick with tension. Mrs. Thompson sat up front, frail but defiant, her son by her side. Lorraine launched into her speech, all smiles and grand promises of showcase beds that conveniently erased Mrs. Thompson's plot. As she called for a vote, Ethan stood, his voice cutting through the room like a whip. "Ms. Baxter, before we vote, we need to talk about your actions your crime saw against Mrs. Thompson in this garden." The room froze. Lorraine's face twisted into a sneer. "Mr. Harper, your accusations are absurd and out of order. This is about progress, not coddling the incapable." Ethan didn't flinch. "This is about you stealing Mrs. Thompson's cane on October 17th, causing her fall. You buried it in a lavender bed to hide your crime." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lorraine scoffed. "That's a lie. You have no proof." Ethan opened his folder, his voice steady as steel. "Proof? I have plenty. He laid out the timeline, Lorraine's BHVY, or the disturbed soil, the earring, and the bumblebee bead, which he held up for all to see. This came from Mrs. Thompson's cane, found exactly where you buried it. He didn't stop there, exposing her history of targeting seniors and her cousin's shady contracts. "I'm not just your neighbor," he said, flashing his city badge. "I'm a compliance officer, and I'm charging you with malicious endangerment, elder abuse, vandalism, and fraud." Lorraine's denials crumbled as the room erupted. Police sirens wailed outside, and officers escorted her out, her face pale, her reins shattered. Ethan handed Mrs. Thompson her cane, dug up intact that morning, and her tearful "thank you" echoed in the stunned silence. The fallout was swift. The HOA ousted Lorraine, launched an audit, and cooperated with the city's investigation. Lorraine was con VY Ted, sentenced to jail, probation, and restitution. Her cousin's company shut down for fraud. Meadow VY EU's garden bloomed anew, led by a fair committee with Mrs. Thompson at its heart, her snapdragons brighter than ever. Ethan, still just the guy from 12 at a most, became a quiet hero, his zucchini plot a symbol of justice. But here's where it gets messy. What do you think? Was Ethan right to take Lorraine down so publicly, or should he have handled it privately to avoid the drama? Is Mrs. Thompson's cane just a cane, or does it represent something bigger in a community like this? And let's be real, have you ever dealt with an HOA bully like Lorraine? Drop your thoughts below. Hit that like button if this story got your blood pumping. And subscribe for more tales that dig up the truth.